Hello everyone, welcome to the next class. So, continuing from where we left off, in the last class we finished installing Oracle Linux, and in this class we are going to do some configurations and install a very important software called PuTTY to connect to the Linux server. Right now we're connected to the Linux server to the terminal itself, right? Now are currently inside the Linux server at this very moment, having gained access through the virtual machine, and are now connected directly to the Linux server itself, correct? But when connected through the Linux server using the terminal, we don't have some conveniences that are useful in your daily routine. For example, using the Windows clipboard, right? The well-known Control-C, Control-V. Another issue is the terminal itself, right? You have a limitation in the terminal where you lose a large part of the screen, and this makes your work more difficult. So we're going to use a software that will solve both of these issues and will also allow you to connect to Linux without being inside the server. In other words, you can connect to the Linux server directly from your own machine, right? And it already natively supports things related to accessing the Windows clipboard, so you can copy information from Windows into Linux, as well as the monitor issue, right? So these settings already come built in, right? And that way you won't have all the work of having to configure the terminal in several places to try to solve this issue, okay? So just for lab purposes, to make it easier for you to even see better what I'm typing here, I'm going to do this, and you can do this as well, for now, through the terminal, okay? Up here, you have the options for the virtual machine from VirtualBox, and down here is the terminal where you're accessing Linux. So I'm going to artificially enlarge this screen to make it easier for you to see, okay? For now, but we'll solve this permanently later using PuTTY. To do this, you can come here to this view option, depending on your version, and then choose this option here. Scale mode is the third option. Then a window will open with some instructions on how you can return to the previous screen. That would be by pressing the right control button on your keyboard, right? It's not the left control. Sorry, it's the right control key on your keyboard. The control button, not the left control. And C. And then you would return to this view, okay? So if you click here on change, it gets easier for me to type and for you to see what I'm doing. If you need to go back to that previous view, you'll press the right control key on your keyboard and C, okay? And then it goes back. You can restore the screen here, right? Whenever necessary, okay? Another thing is that we won't be able to copy things in the terminal right now, okay? By selecting here, pressing Ctrl C, and coming here and trying to press Ctrl V, because you've even lost the mouse, see? The mouse disappeared. To recover the mouse, to get the mouse pointer out of the window, you need to press the right control key, just the control key, right? And then you get control of your mouse back, okay? Well, I'm going to work with the window like this for a bit, but if you need to, you can maximize it. Let me see if I can switch to scale mode and reduce the size of this screen a little. I'm going to, yes, I can do it. So I'm going to work like this because it makes it a bit easier for you to see, and also helps me not forget any commands or anything I need to mention as I follow my script, okay? So here's the thing. The first thing we're going to do, remember that we're on a Linux server that will serve as the server for Oracle database, for the database. By default, when you're using Oracle Linux, it comes with the firewall already enabled, right? So the firewall setup will be activated and configured on other servers, not on the database server, okay? The database server is already inside your network, all right? And you will have other servers that will need to access the database, and that is precisely where the firewall will be meticulously configured to provide robust protection against any potential malicious access attempts. However, it is important to note that this specific configuration process will be carried out elsewhere in a different location or system, okay? So considering all of this, the question then becomes, how exactly can we proceed to disable the firewall in this particular scenario? Just run these commands below, right? So for example, since we're already running as root here, I wouldn't need to use this command in front called sudo. All right? Sudo is short for superuser do, meaning superuser do this. When you access a Linux system with a user account other than the superuser root account, that particular user can be granted various special permissions and elevated privileges. However, there are certain critical commands and administrative tasks that you can only execute and perform if you are indeed the root user possessing full system control and authority. To prevent you from logging in and staying logged in as root, running all commands as root, many companies create a user who isn't root but still has a range of privileges, okay? Or even if a user has the root account, knows the root credentials and passwords, that user still won't connect as root, right? They'll connect as Jose, Pedro, Ricardo. They might even have super user privileges or even know the root password. But imagine if you in a company, you have several users who know the root password and all of them connect directly to the terminal or via PATI as root. Once one of these users runs a wrong command, and since all of them know the root account, sometimes it becomes hard for you to figure out which user made that mistake, even though the IP will be logged. Okay? Where it came from, it's more complicated than if a user simply connected to Linux using their own username, a user account, and when it was necessary to run a command as root, they would just put this command here, sudo, in front, and a command that would be a requirement of the command itself to be run by a super user. Right? Here, since we're already logged in as root, you can check right here, see by the name itself, root, or you could type womi, and then you'll see that it's root, but you can check it here, root, and this little hash symbol here, see, that's already an indication that you're running as root. Since you're already running as root, you can even put sudo in front, or you could simply run the commands. For example, this command here for the firewall, you don't need to put sudo in front, okay? Either way is fine. But as another user who isn't root, it wouldn't just be interesting. It would be necessary for you to run certain commands as root, and then you would have to use sudo and enter the root password. So you would need to know the root password to execute certain commands. So here I'm going to stop now. I can run this command. I am going to completely stop the currently active firewall and then permanently disable the firewall service so that the very next time the Oracle system restarts, the firewall will absolutely not be active again. Okay. With this initial command, I have just successfully stopped it for now. And here I'm disabling the firewall service. To check if it's really disabled, I'm going to verify it now using the status option. I can type the whole command here, or here's another tip. If you on your keyboard use the up or down arrow keys, Oracle Linux, like other Linux distributions, will also keep a history of the last commands that were entered. Okay, it keeps this list. So here, for example, I can recall the last command, and with the left arrow key, I can go back, change it, and put status. Okay, and then I press enter. Right. So here you have the information. See, disabled, which means the firewall is stopped. So continuing. Just to remind you, the IP of this Linux machine we created, you can see it's right here. Look, I can't use the pointer. There you go. It's right here. See, we set this up during the installation lesson, right? And we assigned this IP. Remember that? Ending with .5. So using IPA, that IP space A, you can check the IP of your virtual machine, right? If you want, just out of pure curiosity, you can go to the DOS on your machine, right? We've already talked about this. You can check the IP of your computer, which is different, but both your physical computer, your notebook, or desktop and this virtual machine are on the same network, right? They're both on the network managed here by the router, by your gateway, which is your modem at home. This is happening because we set the VM to bridge mode. Okay? In the first class, when we started the process of installing and creating the Linux virtual machine, right? Here's something interesting that I didn't mention in the last class, and I really should have. Whenever you're going to shut down Linux, to turn off your Linux, don't just turn off your notebook or the virtual machine. First, do a shutdown on your Linux, okay? So by using this command shutdown.h, now Linux will perform a controlled and safe shutdown right now, okay? So if you want to try this out, you can go ahead and do this test. Let me take this opportunity to show you. Let me see what I did wrong here. Shutdown H now. There we go. I might have typed something wrong there, maybe a little typo. Okay. So the machine is off, is being shut down. Done. If you come back here to VirtualBox, you'll see that the machine was shut down safely. And if you want to restart it, just click here on Start the Machine, right? The machine is starting up. You can even close this little window here. And the machine is being shut down in a safe way. It's actually taking a little bit longer than is usual to fully start up and get going. It's already turning on. I'm going to pause here for a moment, just so you don't have to wait for the machine to boot up again. So the machine is being turned on. Here on the left, it's loading the Linux information. I can even close this screen here. Okay, it's running here. See, if I click here on show, it opens this window, which is the Linux window, and now I can close VirtualBox here. Okay, the machine will stay on. All right, so I'm going to log in as root and enter my Linux password 123. As I mentioned in our course and also in your daily work with Linux, you won't be working directly in the terminal. You will use a software, okay, like SSH, or you will use the SSH command itself to access a Linux server. But there are some really interesting software options which are even free that you can download because they already come with features that make our lives easier. One of the main ones is PuTTY. Okay, I'll leave you the link where you can download it. So for example, if you go to the PuTTY page, here is the first option where you can download the PuTTY software. But I've also already provided you with the PuTTY version I'm using in the course through this link here, which I use. It's my own link for the courses, so you can download it. So here it is. To download PuTTY, just click here on download. The download will start, and you can see here that the download is in progress. All right, here it is. It's not big. And as soon as the download finishes, you'll see here in your downloads area that it will be installed actually.